Good evening, everyone. I have 7 o'clock and we call the meeting to order and ask our city clerk to please call the roll.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Greg David,
Present.
Mr. Tyler Dean,
Here.
Miss Emily Hamburg,
Here.
Mr. Tom Schmitz,
Present.
Mr. John Welch.
Present.
And you have a quorum, Mayor.
Thank you. This evening, we have Pastor Gary Green from the Gospel Assembly Church in Bel Aire to lead us in prayer. Pastor Green.
Thank you. Let's all bow our heads in honor of our mighty God. Father, we thank you tonight for these, your servants, for our mayor and our city council. We give you thanks for the way of service they have chosen to take up on behalf of all of us here tonight. We come to you tonight as complex human beings carrying burdens, but yet we carry hope and joy. We trust alone, God, that you can help us. In your love and peace, we pray that we can trust in you more than our fears and our wounds and even our own accomplishments. May we lean on your everlasting arms. So tonight, Father, we pray you'd give us glory tonight, that every decision will lead us to a closer knit community, that they would benefit all who live here, and we glorify your holy name. So that wisdom and strength and courage we pray for, we know comes from you, as all blessings come from you. Help us be good neighbors. Help us realize that each of us are made in your image. So again, bless our mayor and the city council in the name of Jesus, whose perfect love sets us free from all of our fears. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Please join me in pledge of allegiance to the American flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item is to determine if we have any agenda additions. Does anyone have agenda additions? Hearing none, we'll move on to consent agenda. So the consent agenda contains only the minutes from the November 19th, 2024 regular meeting. Any questions or discussion?
A motion to approve the consent agenda as listed and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Welch, a second by Mr. David. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Next is the appropriation ordinance. So this appropriation ordinance encompasses the expenses from October 30th through November 12th, 10/30/2024, and one payroll cycle. Expenditures amount to $3,661,000. Of the reported expenses, $195,000 are infrastructure costs for new developments, and these costs are paid through special assessments. Any questions or discussion on the appropriation ordinance? And if there are none, I'll take a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Dean.
I move we approve appropriation ordinance number 24-21.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Dean, a second by Ms. Hamburg. Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, take call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And that motion carries 5-0. So this evening, we have a special presentation for Mr. James Smith. He's was 13 years. He dedicated service to our planning commission. So, Mr. Schmidt, would you approach me at the podium there, please? So you've seen a lot in 13 years, haven't you? A lot of changes in the city. So we really appreciate all your time and service, and I know you're the chair for many of those years, and so for your dedication and service, we do have this little plaque for you, and also a donation to the Bel Aire Lions Club in your honor. So Wow. So there you are. And then I
Thank
also
you,
have a
Mayor.
couple of little trivial things here. So there you go. Okay.
Thank
Well,
you very much.
much. We
Yeah.
certainly appreciate your
Get a
service and
picture.
your time. And I think our gentleman here, Nick, wants to take our picture. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it, everybody.
Thank you. Next item is the city engineer, Ann Stevens, will provide a brief update on Woodlawn expansion project. Is she here? I know she's here someplace. Well, maybe we'll come back to that because I don't. She's out there working on Woodlawn now. She's trying to get it done. Okay. Well, let's go on with Mr. Kirk Jurgensen with PEC, and he's going to give us an update on the new public works facility. And then
Good evening,
hopefully
Mayor,
Ms. Stevens will
Council.
come back.
Good evening, Mayor,
Thank you.
council
Good evening.
members, staff. Kirk Jurgensen with PEC, your owner's representative on the project. I'm here tonight because the architect was busy, so I'm going to do my best to interpret for him. Any particular questions I may need to defer and get an answer and come back to Ted and let him inform you. Tonight,
Could you please be sure to speak into the microphone?
You
'Cause
bet.
this is
Little better?
broadcast and recorded. So yes, thank you.
tonight would like to update you on the plans where we're at. So do we have a new view, Ted, or not? Do we have a new plan? Okay. So I believe you all,
Everyone has a handout, easier to see, you can't really see.
so I'd like to cover the site plan first. The rotation of the plan has not changed. What we did there on the plan is actually move things around a little bit to better convey what Marty has expressed on how to lay the site out. We still have the main building and parking lot. We also have a vehicle storage with a lean-to that so that we can get more equipment under protection. We still have the fuel island in its previous location and a vehicle, or sorry, the sand and gravel storage area has been relocated to be a little further north on the west side of the site. So basically, we just shuffled a few things around to make better sense. Moving to the floor plan. Really, the floor plan hasn't changed much since we last presented. The locker rooms were redesigned. We've got locker rooms with men's area, storage and future lockers, and a women's locker. The men's locker area will also be a safer room. CMU with rebar in the cells and fully grouted and a concrete lid over that. We're not going FEMA style. We're just going a little safer room. It's going to be safer than the offices. They're made out of metal studs and chipboard partition. We still have the 3 bays for work area, and the top of the sheet will be the wash bay. We will still have a catwalk so that we can do a top to bottom wash down. There's also a upstairs mezzanine area that will be used for storage, and also a electrical mechanical room up there. That's really it. Drawings are at about, I'm taking a guess, at about 75% complete for construction documents. We are looking to put the project out to the contractors around the 3rd or 4th of December, definitely by the 5th. There's some little leeway there as we work through finalizing everything. We're looking to have bids back on the 20th. That way we can negotiate between the 20th and the 1st of January. So that believe the 7th is your next meeting, that maybe we're actually prepared to come with a contract ready for signature.
Very good. Well, thank you.
You bet.
So I know it's kind of late in the game, but FEMA has funded some tornado rooms in other buildings in the area. And I don't know if we've actually looked at that and talked with them about funding a tornado room here. But like I said, it's kind of late in the game to probably go through that. And I know there's some certain urgency here because of the funding available for this. So I don't want to delay this with that.
Yeah, it's my understanding a lot of times you need to turn in final plans and then wait for the okay.
Oh,
And the other thing from my experience is usually there's a disaster that's happened to be able to get that funding.
Yeah.
So, okay.
they've had a few disasters this year, I think.
Not locally though.
Yeah,
That's
right,
our
right.
problem. So.
Yeah. Okay.
Any questions about the plans or site plan? We've also got 9 contractors on board right now. I have 1 to 3 of those are questionable due to other potential projects out in the local area that may drop us down to 6. So, but they're all quality contractors, very confident with any of them that end up getting the low bid.
Any questions for Mr. Jurgensen? Okay, well, thank you very much. We appreciate the information.
Thank you for the update.
Look now for Ann Stevens on the Woodlawn update. So we couldn't find you when we called before.
I apologize. I was still talking to folks downstairs.
Okay.
Just a brief update on Woodlawn. A lot of this you already heard at our workshop last week. PEC is still in the information gathering stage. Their survey crews have been out on Woodlawn. They have collected a specialized drone photography that they're using. They also used a mobile LiDAR unit, which is kind of new-ish in the area, to collect information to create a surface model. The information that we had collected previously was the prior pre-construction condition, and it's drastically changed since then. So they did need to go and recollect the survey information. But the model that they are building will serve as the foundation for the reconstruction plans. It's on everything that everything else will be built on top of. Their geotechnical crews is scheduled to be on site this week. Obviously, with the rain yesterday, they were not able to be there. I'm not sure if they were out there today. I have
They
not
were,
been on.
I saw.
They were perfect. But they're going to be putting in 8 full depth core drills and subsurface borings, as well as 4 monitoring wells. The purpose of these borings and the wells is just to collect additional information to, number one, to define the extents of the reconstruction. We've got from KDOT's report, they said they gave us basically 3 sections that we could do, from the smallest to the middle to the whole darn thing. And PEC is trying to use this additional information plus all the other information that we've collected to really narrow in on what's the minimum that we need to reconstruct to have a road that's going to last us 20 plus years. But the other stuff, the geotech is also going to help determine design parameters such as the pavement section of the roadway, verifying that what we had used previously is adequate, or if it's not, how to change it. If we want to do any soil stabilization to help provide a little bit thicker, more stable, stiffer section underneath the pavement. And then any under drains. We know there's water down there. How much, how far, where do we want the under drains to go to collect the water to get it out from underneath the pavement? So the soil plus the water has been bad news for the pavement from the reports that we've got. So that's where they're at right now. It's not a huge update. You certainly haven't seen much going on except people taking measurements and stuff, but it's going to continue for a couple more weeks until they really get all of that data collected and analyzed, and then can start figuring out, doing a little bit more of the intensive design. Where are we at? How much are we taking out, and get more information there.
Okay. Any questions for Ann? Well, glad to see we're getting some things done.
Yes.
That's positive. So thank you. All right. Next is citizen concerns, and I have a card from Mr. Dave Landau. So, Mr. Landau, if you'd like to speak for 3 minutes and make sure you give your name and address for the record.
David Landau, 4743 Kruger. This goes against my sensibilities. But this is not about me. It's about the whole dang neighborhood. And the mayor can take a short nap because he already indicated he doesn't care about the issue. As people die and people move, neighborhoods change. My neighborhood is no exception. Last year, a relatively new neighbor erected a huge skeleton for Halloween. After Halloween, they threw a turkey hat on it. December came and it was a dormant Santa Claus hat. February neared, it became a Valentine skeleton. March brought a shamrock. 6 months later, after complaint, the skeletons finally came down. And by the way, the big skeleton blew over. I did not do it. It blew over in the wind here yesterday, I think. But this year for Halloween, the huge skeleton came back with a couple of smaller ones, and they're still there. Halloween was over about 3 weeks ago, if I recall correctly. The mayor said we have no ordinance against it. I've lived here going on 40 years, and we never needed such an ordinance, but we need an ordinance now. I visited a couple of neighbors, and they agree with me. In order to keep from upsetting the woke crowd, the ordinance would need to include and address all holiday decorations, something like a month before to 2 weeks after the holidays. Lee Parker sadly passed away, but he could have figured out a good ordinance for this. And perhaps the League of Municipalities might have a good copy of it, a good ordinance. If you decide the ordinance is not prudent, then I would suggest spending a little money and erect a huge skeleton in the mayor's lawn and perhaps a smaller skeleton in each council member's lawn. And then we won't have to be the only neighborhood that puts up with it. Tonight, they appear to be sacrificing an even smaller skeleton over a fire. And thank you for consideration for letting me talk. I think I'm under my 3 minutes.
You're fine. Thank you. I have asked our city attorney to please visit with you about this matter so that maybe we can come up with something that's reasonable, but she'll be contacting you. Okay.
Okay. Nobody contacted me yet, but okay. Thank you.
All right. Thanks. Do we have any other citizens here? I'm not seeing any, so I'm assuming not. Okay. We'll move on to ordinance resolutions and final actions. So, I'm sorry. I got to do the reports. I'm skipping items. Okay. Council member reports. Let's start with Ms. Hamburg.
Thank you, Mayor. Real quickly, Saturday, I attended the Sedgwick County Association of Cities meeting that was hosted here in Bel Aire at Clinic in a Can. I appreciate them hosting. We heard from Gentry Thiessen on the state of kind of real estate and the housing market here with the realtors of South Central Kansas. And we got an update from County Commission Chair Ryan Beatty. And then I popped over after that at our Native Spaces event with the tree board. Appreciate them putting it on and talking about different native grasses and things like that. It was a nice event from what I saw. And then right before I came here, I attended the volunteer meeting downstairs, and appreciate everybody that volunteers on all of the boards and in a variety of ways that we don't always see to make Bel Aire better. Thank you, Mayor.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Welch.
Just like to say thank you to the Lions Club for dinner a couple of weeks Saturdays ago. It was pretty good.
You had to pay for that, didn't you?
I did pay. Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, my wife paid.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Mr. Smith.
I don't have anything to report.
Mr. David.
Thank you. I also attended the Sedgwick County Association of Cities and the Clinic in a Can. That's an amazing place. I really appreciate that. We do a lot of good stuff going on right here in Bel Aire. And yes, also went to the volunteer dinner and appreciate all those volunteers. Thank you.
And Mr. Dean.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have a few items. One, last week I had the opportunity to visit PAC 585 at Resurrection School for one of their meetings. Their current adventure is learning all about being a good citizen. So it was kind of fitting. It was a week after the election, so I talked a little bit about my story of being an elected official, as well as talked about the importance of our elections and voting. It was a great opportunity to talk to them about the importance also of being engaged in their community, however that looks for them. Obviously, groups like theirs are a great way to get started. Other volunteering, helping with events or serving on community boards, committees, or councils. So with that said too, I wanted to thank, I also attended the volunteers dinner this evening and appreciate staff putting that on and all the volunteers that help make Bel Aire a great community. Thank you.
Very good. They must be getting tired of me because they've been asking me for years, and they found somebody else. That's good. So it's nice to mix it up. All right, I'll move on to the mayor's report. So on November 6th, I attended the Bel Aire Chamber of Commerce meeting. Senator Carolyn McGinn talked about some efforts she is working on in Topeka. Senator McGinn's term in the Senate ends in January. She did not run for re-election. Along those lines, due to redistricting, as a result of the 2020 census, Bel Aire now has only one senator to represent us, and we are wholly in the 16th Senate district, and our senator is Senate President Ty Masterson. The House went a slightly different direction. Bel Aire is now represented by 3 House members in Topeka: Patrick Penn for the 85th district, Casey O'Havison for the 98th district, and Emil Bergquist for the 91st district. Bel Aire Chamber also held elections of officers. Greg Dane is the president. Currently, the vice president position is open, so maybe Tyler will step up for that. Not dropping any names here, but okay. Brent Vasquez is retained as the treasurer, and the position of secretary is open. So, of course, the past president is now Aaron Maxwell. I was invited by the Republican Women United to participate in their Veterans Day parade on their float, and these parades are a lot of fun. I always want to honor our veterans for their service to the nation. My wife and I also enjoyed the annual Taste of Italy dinner. It was a good event to support the Bel Aire Lions Club, and we took home a couple of gift cards from the silent auction. So always good to support the Lions. On Tuesday, November 12th, I attended the WAMPO Policy Board meeting. We approved the recommendations of the Project Selection Committee. There are 12 Bel Aire projects on that list. I could not tell from the proposed timing of the WAMPO status of these projects from the list and have asked clarification for both status and proposed timing. I do know the 53rd Street bike pedestrian path is planned for 2025, and the 45th Street rebuild is planned for 2026, but need more clarification on the other projects. So Chad Farissa has committed to provide that clarification. On November 13th, I attended the Utility Advisory Committee meeting. They discussed the water conservation plans and various inputs, and they are working on ideas to improve that plan. So November 16th, the Bel Aire hosted the Sedgwick County Association of Cities, as was talked about by Ms. Hamburg and Mr. David. Good turnout, about 25 people from around the county. We heard a presentation from Gentry Tyson, the Government Affairs Director for Realtors Property Resource, and she provided data on housing market. Average days on market are now about 12, and that's much shorter than the anticipated normal 3 to 4 months. So the housing market in Sedgwick County continues to remain hot, and the median price is now about $246,250. Ms. Tyson did encourage updating zoning and accommodate denser housing developments. Apparently there's a big demand for that. So a big thank you to Ted Henry, our city manager, and Michael Warensky, the owner of Clinic in the Can, for their efforts in coordinating this event. I also thank Emily Hamburg and Greg David for supporting Bel Aire by attending this meeting. This evening, we held our annual volunteers dinner. We had about 15 sign up. I think there were more than that there. Than the 15, so that was good. It's a small token of appreciation for the work these volunteers do for the benefit of Bel Aire, especially the Planning Commission, Utility Advisory Board, and the Tree Board. And again, thank you, Ted and Bel Aire staff who helped put this together. Reminder, CCA board members and alternates. This month's meeting is November 21st, the day after tomorrow, here at Bel Aire City Hall. It was moved up a week since the fourth Thursday of November is Thanksgiving. And recent rains have been wonderful. I measured over 8 inches so far this month. However, we need much more rain to get us out of the drought condition. Please continue to pray for rain, especially for rain in the Cheney watershed. And since this is our last meeting before Thanksgiving, I hope everyone has a blessed Thanksgiving. God continues to bless us with many more gifts than we can count. Please take time to give him thanks as you celebrate with family and friends. I'll now ask our city attorney for her report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just make this very brief. I attended Kansas Open Records Act training this morning. It was very helpful. It's always good to hear from the League of Kansas Municipalities, questions from people participating, and those answers. It helps provide all of us governing entities some guidance. One of the things mentioned was a reminder that every valid CORA request is directed to be acted upon as soon as possible, but no later than the third business day. That means we need to be organized when we receive it and act quickly. Staff has already had multiple training sessions where we've talked about how to respond, what to look for, how to best communicate with each other. So I feel really good about that. The other thing that I learned at training was that we do not have a local freedom of information officer, also known as an FIO. Per statute, every city must appoint a local freedom of information officer. What does that officer do? They prepare and provide educational materials and information concerning the Open Records Act. They're available to assist the public agency and members of the general public to resolve disputes relating to the Open Records Act. Their overall duty is to preserve and protect public records. Right now, a lot of that is upon our city clerk, but that's probably going to be an ordinance that I bring forward to council to review and consider. Otherwise, I have nothing else. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Now we'll move on to our city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I got a pretty lengthy update later on in the agenda, so I'll reserve my time for that so we can move forward.
We don't put time limits on city managers.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. All right.
There's always a time limit.
Well, yeah. Okay. Very good. Now we'll move on to ordinance resolutions and final actions. So a detailed report is in your packet that outlines proposed annexation involving shared roadways between Bel Aire and Sedgwick County. Earlier this year, the county director of public works, Lynn Packer, discussed with former city manager Ty Lasher the county's interest in Bel Aire annexing certain roads to establish equitable responsibility for road infrastructure. The county is pursuing similar agreements with many other cities. Two Bel Aire areas in Bel Aire were chosen for this proposal and are shown on the project, on the projector. Are they shown there? Yes. Okay. So in exchange, Sedgwick County has offered to perform pavement preservation work on Webb Road. And the city attorney has reviewed the ordinance, and Mr. Packer, is Mr. Packer here? There you are. Okay, to answer questions. So Mr. Packer, if you come to the podium, please, and anybody has questions for you. And one question I do have is this because I'm no expert at reading these legal descriptions. Do these go to the center line or do they take the entire road, these proposed ordinances?
So in this particular case, the annexation marked for number one on Rock Road is to center line because you already have the other half of the road. And in the case of 2 and 3, which is on Webb Road, that is for the entire road right away.
Okay. So at the end, if you pass these ordinances, then we would have the entire road on both
That's
areas, or all three of these areas, right?
Correct.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure I understood that. So, anyone have questions or discussion for Mr. Packer?
I do.
Mr.
So
Schmidt?
fair and equitable is typically you split the road, whoever owns the property on that side gets it and is responsible for the road up to the center line. So what it sounds like the county's trying to do is to get Bel Aire to cover all the costs of these roads so the county doesn't have to do it. And the county currently, like on number 1, the other half is yours and you should pay for it. But what it sounds like the county's trying to do is to basically renege on their responsibility to cover half of the roadway that is adjacent to their property that has not been annexed by the city. So, and then it sounded like when we asked if you would cover your half, you said no. So you're basically trying to flip the whole thing over for Bel Aire citizens to pay for all of the road, when in most of this, half of it should be the county's to cover. But you said you won't do that. So you basically want to flip us
to where you are, to cover everything. And as you can notice, like one of these considerations, there's quite a bit of cost in these darn roads. They're very expensive. So I can understand why the county would try to offload that, but I think fair and equitable would mean halfway. And if the county isn't agreeable to that, then I think we should just leave it as is.
I think a little explanation needs to be added to the report that was in there. What we've done is gone through and looked at roads that made sense for our city partners to maintain. For example, Sedgwick County has been maintaining that half mile of Webb Road now in its entirety for many years without the aid of Bel Aire partnering with us. Although you did annex up to that half. The KSA 12520E is very clear. We have the right as the county to unilaterally just assign those to the cities as they come up on just one half of the road. We don't take that approach. Our approach is to approach all of our partners. We have 20 cities that we partner with. We have maintained that road. And I will point out, number one is more of that's a cleanup, which is another thing we use this statute for, but just because it's a lot easier to go this route versus the other options that are available. You guys have been maintaining that portion of Rock Road for many years, well over a decade. It is a less than half of a road. It has been inside we've considered it to be a Bel Aire road off our maps for probably close to 20 years. You have maintained it without question, but we did notice going through the legal descriptions that technically there was a little bit of a hole there that left his city. So we've just basically filled that in to make everything clean. I would say probably about a little over half of our requests with our city partners this round has been to clean up little irregularities like that. Situations where the cities are already maintaining it, but we just had from a legal standpoint, there was a hole that existed, some of which was because of just an errant legal description that was approved and went through. I could not tell you if that was a situation in this case or not. And then we have other situations like numbers 2 and 3, which is the same half mile, where we just have, in this particular case, we asked the city if they would be willing to take this at this time, just because we have to actually literally go out of our way to maintain this road. We don't have any part of Webb Road north of 54. The city takes care of it north of 254, the township takes care of it north of 254, and the city of Wichita and Bel Aire has it south of this location down to US 54. So for us, it was a matter of just ease of maintenance. You guys right now are maintaining the portion of that south half, and then just in the middle of the half mile, just stopping. So it made sense to reach out to you to discuss that. That's what we've done with the other cities as well. We do this about every 5 years. The last time we did this was in 2015. For obvious reasons, we're a little late. 2020 brought COVID. Everything kind of slid, and we're just getting caught up with that last year, running into this year. We spent most of this year working with our city partners on what made sense. We do not approach the cities and ask them to take every road that legally meets those definitions. For example, here in your case with Bel Aire, there's a quarter mile of 127th that meets the statute definition for you to take over and maintain. It didn't make sense to us. You have nothing else out there. It's maintained by the township currently. There was no benefit to having you take over an errant quarter mile. So that's a discussion for when development occurs and moves on down the road. And that was another common theme throughout talking to all the cities, was trying to find out where it made sense and where it didn't. And we tried to make sure that those just like when we go through and we partner with you on snow removal, there's places where we, remove snow in the city. There's places where you guys may remove snow out of the county, just from an ease of not having to pick up your plow go on down the road and put it back down again. We do the same thing with snow removal.
So a couple
ahead.
of clarifications. The Webb Road issue is a recent annexation. We just did that in the last year. So it hasn't been out there for years. It's a new thing. It's fairly new. Okay. And that was because a developer requested that we do that. So I believe, and I'll ask Ann if she, our city engineer, if she remembers this, but I think on the case of the township on 127th, we already have a shared agreement with the township to maintain that road. So we are paying for the maintenance of that road already with an agreement with the township.
Okay. Very good.
So number one to the north of number one, does the city of Bel Aire responsible for both sides of that road for some reason?
That is already annexed in by the city of Bel Aire in its entirety. That's my
Because to the
understanding.
west of number one, isn't that county?
That is correct.
So we're already covering road that's basically half should be covered by the county.
Not how I would put it.
Well, it's the way it's written in the law.
The
Same way with 2 and 3.
The way it's written in the law is when another city has, and I'll also note that we do not recommend cities split road annexations down the middle. It's done, we actually try to get the cities to agree in principle on who should annex the road and, locations where they want to share, just because that ends up being a lot to manage when you're going around the entire city. City of Wichita is a very good example. They partner with most of the cities through here, and for them to take care of half a road and have those smaller cities meet the cities, this Wichita's timeline and have their budgets align and sync up with everything would be a very tedious task for Wichita to do. It's only when the cities can't come together and make a decision that we then make the recommendation that they take half the road each. It usually ends up being they enter into an intergovernmental agreement and move forward with either one entity or the other, maintaining the roadway for the other. We don't recommend it. We recommend one city, and we try to facilitate those discussions so that it's just similar to think about police powers. When you have one city on half the road and another city, who's going to come to a crash when the cars crash in Bel Aire, but they end up in Wichita?
Do you think
Wichita
the police keep track of which half of the road is owned by who?
Yeah.
I can tell you without a doubt, I've seen the police officers out in the middle of the road pointing fingers at each other on
Yeah.
who's going to do the paperwork. In fact, the city of Mays came to us a couple of years ago and requested that we have full annexation or a full annexation of the road because of that type of discussions that we're having out in the field with police officers.
So we've had that discussion with our police chief before, and he says that it's wherever the car ends up is where the entity that takes care of the jurisdiction. Just so you know, because you are not aware of this, and neither is anybody else on the council, but I did send a note to Sedgwick County Chairman Ryan Beatty and Commissioner Pete Meitner requesting a meeting to discuss shared maintenance of these and other roads in Bel Aire that we share with Sedgwick County. And Chairman Beatty has said that he was going to get with Mr. Packer and work to set up a meeting, but I have not heard back from him. Have you heard from Chairman Beatty on that?
Not specifically on your email,
Okay.
but I have on the process in general. Yes.
Okay. So I'm looking forward to having a meeting to discuss that further, because I agree with your perspective, although we'd never talked about this. But anyway, it's a concern to me too that we share. And I don't have a design on who has the ownership of the road. I just want to make sure that we have an equitable agreement on how we're going to get this road maintained. So that's my view.
And I do want to point out, you guys may recall, you recently led a project for 53rd Street We did participate in the cost on that. We
Yes.
do not have a memo of understanding or any type of previous agreement that indicated that we would do that. You do have that entire road, even through the portion that the county, where there's a county land adjacent. You have the entire road annexed to that section. So just because you have full jurisdiction of the road, it doesn't mean that we won't partner with you. What our answer to no was to enter into an agreement that we would partner with you in the future. We have 20 city partners. We do not, as a matter of just trying to, well, it didn't work in my case, but not pull our hair out, try to manage individual agreements with every time we would come up with one of these situations. We try to approach the cities every 5 years with these annexations where they make sense. We often partner with cities where we do not have necessarily any jurisdiction of the road. And it just comes down, it really comes down to a time the agreements would tie the hands of a future governing body of Sedgwick County. And we just, if whether it happens 5 years in the future or 50 years in the future, it should be that governing body of Bel Aire and Sedgwick County to decide at that time what makes sense.
And I appreciate that you're working with us on the 53rd Street project, which is the next item on the agenda. But that's just done hit and miss. Well, it's not. I shouldn't say hit and miss, but it's done only when those big ticket things come up, and then we have a discussion, and maybe we are successful at having a resolution to that. And I will say the county has been fair in a couple of those items, but there's been nothing to talk about the day-to-day. You got to maintain roads all the time. You can't just wait until it comes to be a big ticket thing. So you have to do something to keep the roads in good shape. So that's my interest in trying to
The
get
biggest
some sort of
benefit of having a single entity take over ownership of the road is really it gives you the police powers. It gives you the access control management. And it allows for you to set basically set the speed limit, set your access controls, manage that roadway in the manner that fits the city best without having to negotiate with another government on what's best. We literally for a while had a split road where 1 mile was 45 miles an hour and the other one direction was 45 miles an hour and the other direction was 40 miles an hour. A lot of the residents considered it a speed trap, but it actually came down to the two cities just didn't agree on what the speed limit should be and had reasons for setting it what it was. And it just doesn't, like I said, we don't recommend sharing of the roads in that manner.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Dean.
I do have a question. So there was mention about a potential future maintenance project. When is the last time that the county did a maintenance project on this stretch of Webb Road?
I believe the last time, I don't have the exact date. I don't like the calendar. Let's bring that with me. I do not have the exact date, but I believe the last time we did anything out there was in 2018, about that time frame. One of the things we do and we do this with all of our city partners, is if the road hasn't been maintained by us in the last really 2 to 3 years, we usually let them know that even though annexation will occur, and again, this is another reason why we're trying to partner, we're trying to do this fairly with everybody. If we haven't touched in the last 2 to 3 years, we usually indicate that we've done this with a couple of our cities with these annexations this year. We have indicated we'll come back one more time to do preventative pavement maintenance before we're done. And that's basically the intent of that is to give the city easily 8 to 10 years notice before they need to do any maintenance out there. Usually in this case, I believe this road was going to be scheduled for 2025 or 2026 preventative maintenance, and that's what we'll do. In one particular city's situation, that isn't going to happen until 2027. They've already annexed it, but we've already told them we'll come back in 2027 or so when it needs it. We will do the next overlay. Again, giving them even longer before they really need to do any maintenance on it and set up their budget accordingly.
One other thought, and there might be a question in here, is I know with KDOT studying Rock Road and Webb for potential overpasses and interchanges, there's been a lot of talk of what that final design will be, whether there'll be frontage or back edge roads. And when you bring up access control, where the KDOT access will start and begin along Webb Road. And so I kind of wonder if that sort of gives me a little bit of a signal that maybe this is too early of a discussion to be having, just from the standpoint of not understanding, does KDOT need to be involved in what this road, I mean, very soon with their design process, with it being in the design pipeline. So those are my few thoughts. I don't know that there's an actual question in there unless you have an answer for how KDOT might be involved with an access control situation along Webb, and if it would make more sense for that to happen between the county and KDOT or the city and KDOT.
I would just note that whatever happens, both Bel Aire and Sedgwick County are part of the 254 coalition. We're both partnering with them, and whether it be working with us or working with you, I think the end result is going to be exactly the same with what they do with the plans. We're all working together on that.
Well, I would really like to have that meeting with the county commissioners so that we can see what we can accomplish for the long term. And so I'm going to suggest we table this item, but I don't get to vote on this, so it's really up to the council.
I've got a couple of questions before I do anything.
Yeah.
To the west of number 1 is county, correct? And how far west does that go and stay in the county?
I'm sorry?
How far west of number 1 is still in the county? Does it go clear to Woodlawn, or does it just go?
Not clear to Woodlawn. There's a section there that's owned by Bel Aire. It's kind of in and out.
Okay, well, the point of that question is, are we leaving an island of the county there, and we should be looking at annexing it into one of the cities that abuts?
No, it's not. It's not an island per se.
Well, it's a buffer
big.
between
It's not
Keachai
a one
and
block.
It's
Bel
a
Aire.
buffer between Keachai and
But
Bel
it's
Aire.
completely surrounded, is what I'm saying. And
It's not. I can pull up a map.
I believe, I could be wrong. I'm looking at it here, but I don't have exactly, but I believe the parcels in there, there is a parcel at least, if not more than one parcel, that's greater than 20 acres. And therefore, a unilateral annexation can't occur. It has to be requested by the property owner. And that's one of the reasons why that is in that shape right now.
not aware of that rule. And my other concern is similar to Mr. Dean's, is on what's coming up in our packet, we're annexing clear up to 254 on the line there. It's not coming that far. And my real concern is who's going to pay for what parts of that intersection. If we own it all the way up, I think it's really too early for us to be annexing that road until we know what KDOT's doing and who's going to pay for what, is what I'm
I will simply
saying.
note that KDOT has that stretch of that coming down where you can see it, the triangle section, that's KDOT right away. And they have that jurisdiction of that portion of Webb Road. And to be totally honest, I don't believe in the gist of the improvements that are out there that annexation by the city or maintaining it by the county for the half mile will have any impact on what is being, how we are splitting the partnership with costs.
Yeah. Did we not annex that, or did the guy give it to the state? I know on the other half mile, Bel Aire owns a wide stretch down through that we had planned on using as part of our contribution to the KDOT project.
There is a frontage road there.
The section with the flag note 2, we annexed within the last year.
Yes, but that doesn't explain the triangle corner.
I don't think we annexed Triangle Corner. I think it's in KDOT,
but I know
but I
that-
don't know that.
But the question is, the guy that owns that 80, he asked us only to annex part of it. And I don't know if he's holding the other, hoping he's going to get money from KDOT, or he gave it to Kansas, or if it's part of Bel Aire. It's
If-
not part of Bel Aire.
If
don't
I
think,
remember
but-
correctly, I may be wrong. If I remember correctly, everything north of that triangle section is KDOT right away. It is not owned by the individual. That entire triangular section is no longer owned by an individual.
So my memory, and we can check the legal documents, is we did have the corner of Rock and K254, and we switched it with the developer there because that's where the interchange is going. And when I click on it in GIS, it doesn't show any property owner. So we can look at it, but
Then in all likelihood, Bel Aire owns that triangle.
in all likelihood, yes. If memory serves me right, we did a land swap with that, but it's for the intent to give the KDOT for right of way. So
Okay. Well, I still think it's too early for us to be annexing Webb Road. Number one, I don't care about, but Webb Road, I kind of do. And with some uncertainty here, I would make a motion to table the ordinance annexing 3 tracts of land as described in the ordinance.
I'll second.
So second by Mr. Dean. Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Welch and a second by Mr. Dean to table. Any additional discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to say a few words. So I do think the meeting between the mayor and the chair of Sedgwick County to understand kind of what the agreement would look like going forward, or what they're understand the situation a little bit better of how they're partnering with other cities, and make sure that we understand the full impact of that decision is why I seconded the table. So
Very good. We don't need to do a roll call on this, do we?
And it would only need to be a simple majority.
Okay. So you do want a roll call on this?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right. I'll ask the city clerk to please call the roll then.
Mr. Greg David,
Aye.
Mr. Tyler Dean,
aye.
Ms. Emily Hamburg,
Aye.
Mr. Tom Schmitz,
Aye.
and Mr. John Welch.
Aye.
And the motion carries 5-0, Mayor.
It's tabled.
Thank you. It's
Correct.
tabled for, yes. Thank you for the correction. Yes. Move on to item B. This agreement between Sedgwick County and Bel Aire has reconstructed 53rd Street and requested assistance from Sedgwick County with some of the costs. 16% of the adjacent property is unincorporated. Sedgwick County has agreed to contribute $281,000 towards the project, which represents approximately 16% of the estimated total cost of $1,756,000. So in my note to Sedgwick County Commissioners, I use this as an example of sharing costs, but this is only being done for specific big ticket items. And we should, I should recommend we approve this, but we also should have an agreement for all shared roads going forward. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Hamburg?
I'm going to make a motion to approve an agreement with Sedgwick County for their payment of $281,000 towards the 53rd Street Road project and authorize the mayor to sign.
I'll second.
Motion by Ms. Hamburg, a second by Mr. David. Any other discussion?
Good question. Does the county did own one chunk of land along there, correct? Along
It's
53rd?
still in county, yes.
Okay, it's
They
not
don't own
in,
it.
not in Keachai and not in
No.
Bel Aire.
No, they don't own it, but it is in, it
Yeah, I
is not
said that
incorporated.
wrong. It's in their jurisdiction,
It's in-
not,
it's- Yeah, it's
not
not,
Bel Aire and not Keachai. Okay,
that's correct.
thank you. I just wanted to be clear on that.
Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. The motion carries 5-0. Item C, so this is a personnel policy manual update for the Pregnant Women's Fairness Act. So council discussed this new federal requirement at the last council workshop on November 12th. And an update to the personnel policy manual has been included in the packet. And City Attorney Maria Schrock is available to answer your questions. Any questions for Ms. Schrock? So just to comment on my own, so this item is just saying to treat workers with basic decent human decency. So if we have any managers who need such a policy in place to treat people decently, then we have the wrong managers. I don't think we have any of those kind of managers in our team. And so that falls in the category within when I really wish that Congress would focus their efforts on more important issues like passing budgets on time and not spend time on these small matters that are just matters to treat people with human decency.
I agree with your comment. I tried to explain this to my wife and she says, why do you need to pass such a thing? And I said, somebody someplace must not have treated somebody right. So it's now a national issue.
So any other discussion or comments about this issue? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to adopt an update to the personnel policy manual as presented.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Welch, a second by Mr. Dean. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. Move on to item D, selecting bids for sanitary sewer improvements in Skyview at Block 49, second phase 2. These are getting very complicated. So this one is ready to move forward with construction of the sanitary sewer improvements to support the development. Bids were accepted on November 6th for the project. 6 contractors responded. Low bid fell within the initial petition amount. The cost of the improvements for these projects will be financed through a bond and spread as special assessments against the benefiting lots. So Ms. Stevens apparently is here to give us some information or answer questions.
Sure. So this project is just for the sanitary sewer improvements, as the mayor had said. I did ask the design engineers, why did you just bid out the sanitary? Because we usually do sanitary sewer, water, and sometimes grading or storm sewer. And they said that they weren't quite ready to put out the grading package yet. And they have found that contractors will put in the sewer and then they do all the grading and then they come back and do the water. So they don't have to do protective fill, because if the water line is shallow enough, they have to put a little bit of dirt over it. So not generally an issue, but I just thought it was kind of an interesting thought as to why they were doing that. We did get quite a few bidders. We had the 5 bidders and very good prices. So it apparently works and that's what they're going with. So I said, why not? Meese was the low bid on the project. They have a good history with the city, a very long history with the city, and have always done good work for us.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Schmitz.
$131,000 difference between the high bid and the low bid. So is it all apples to apples? And some just aren't that interested. They're just throwing out a bid, and if they get it, great. Or is there a difference in the deliverable between those? And there's a pretty big spread there. I would think it would be a little tighter. Can you comment?
Not specifically, because I haven't talked to any of the contractors, but generally what we find is contractors that are busy, they will put in a higher bid. And if they get it, great. We'll figure it out. We'll fit it in somehow. Contractors that are looking for work are a little bit more aggressive in their bidding. All contractors do get the exact same bid package. They are expected to do the exact same thing. We do have inspectors out on the project site to ensure that everything is going in per the plans and specifications. That's the extent of my knowledge. Mr. Dean, as a contractor, may have some other insights that I do not, but I believe that summarizes.
I'll make one comment. I don't know their specifics, but the fact that we have 6 bidders on this size job is pretty shocking. I think that does show that there's maybe some people hungry for work based on that alone. 3 of the bids are pretty tight and the other 3 are kind of higher. And
Sure.
so I'm not seeing anything crazy there. I think that the number of bids is shocking. We've been getting 3 bids on these types of projects. We're getting 6. That's usually a sign the market's maybe shifted a little bit. So I'm comfortable with the contractor that's been recommended. I don't have any issue.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll go ahead and move. We accept the bid from East in the amount not to exceed the $150,526.60 for sanitary sewer improvements to serve Skyview at Block 49 Second, Phase 2, and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Dean and a second by Mr. Welch. Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Move on to item E. So this developer, Bel Aire Lakes, is ready to move forward with the construction of improvements to support the development. Bids were accepted on November 12th for the project, and bids were solicited from 10 contractors, but only 2 chose to submit bids. The low bid fell within the initial petition amount, and the cost improvements, again, is for this project is financed through a bond and spread as special assessments against the benefiting lots.
So this bid was a little surprising because we'd come off of the previous bid, which had the 6 contractors,
Right.
to this one where we had the 2, and it's just like, what the heck? So I did ask the engineers, I said, I know I'm going to get questions from council. Could you please contact some of the bidders that did not bid on this project and ask why? And they just said that that there were several bid lettings the previous week, and many of them had gotten work that previous week and were just full and could not handle this. So they chose not to bid.
And did this include grading or not, since that's what we just talked about on the last one?
No, this is just the water, the sewer, and transmission main. The 16-inch is the trunk line that we have going throughout the city. In order to serve that Bel Aire Lakes development in the red on the screen, we needed the 16-inch to go up there to provide them with water. The original hope was that the Cedar Pass development, which is just to the south, would have the water up there that we could connect to, but they phased out their project differently and did not have the water main all the way up there. So this 16-inch will help provide a looped system when Cedar Pass eventually moves north.
So are we going to fill in a water main so we can serve people north of there?
There currently, we won't put that in until there's development. It's going to be right at just the top of that page. So it'll be there when we have development in that north area, but just not putting it in now because there's nothing to connect it to. There would be a lot of dead water that city staff would have to go and flush and basically waste because the chlorine residuals would get too low.
Yeah, I agree with not doing it yet. I just was wondering if that was in our future plans. If that was how we would handle it, was to come from the corner of 53rd.
Yes.
Are we having some problems with the water needing to be flushed because it's not moving as much?
And there's a few areas of town that we do have that. And specifically in the newer areas of town that are just getting built out that don't have a whole lot of usage. Our staff does have to go and flush. Occasionally we do get complaints in more established areas of town where water tastes a little funky or it smells odd. And so our staff will go out with their chlorine testing equipment and take samples. And if the test comes out a little bit low, then they will flush that water. We also serve a small group of houses on 45th Street near Keachai that we were hoping to be able to give to Keachai at one point, or not Keachai, I'm sorry, Park City.
Park City.
At one point in time, and Park City said, no, we really don't want to take those. So that is a dead end line that the city does have to go out and flush on occasion. There's, I think, half a dozen houses out there.
I think I remember that. It's about 5 years ago or so. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. If there's no other questions or discussion, we'll entertain a motion.
Well, I motion to accept the bid from Nowak in the amount not to exceed $1,066,007.70 for water and sewer improvements to serve Bel Aire Lakes Phase 1 and authorize the mayor to sign.
I'll second.
A motion by Mr. Smith, a second by Mr. David. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And that motion carries 5-0. Move on to item F. This is related to the last item, Bel Aire Lakes. Since the city staff does not have time to provide construction observation services, staff asked PEC to provide a fee for construction observation and construction engineering administration services. And the construction observation services for the water and sanitary sewer improvements will be provided on a part-time basis. The construction staking and testing will be provided by the contractor. So the costs associated with that project also will be financed through the bond and spread as special assessments.
So we always want construction observation on our projects just to make sure that everything is going in according to plans and specifications. I do not have the time to be out. The public works staff does not have the knowledge on the subdivision mainline projects to be out there inspecting, nor do they have the time trying to take care of the rest of the city. So we do hire this out. It kind of depends. Sometimes we do it just putting it in with the contract if it's a firm that we've worked with quite a bit on inspection services and we've got comfort level with them. This time the designer was not one that we had worked with in some time, so wanted to make sure that everything worked well. And then I always like having a check and balance. So if it's somebody that I haven't worked with in a while or a new company, then I usually like to have somebody else come and look at it. Since we have the master services agreement with PEC, I called them up and asked them for a quote. They have previously inspected the microsurfacing project as well as the street patching project that we had 2 years ago. I was very pleased with their services. One of the things that I look for is communication, and they were very, very communicative on both that patchwork project as well as the microsurfacing. It's important to myself, that's important to Ted, to make sure that we've got the information out to the citizens. Now, this is a little bit different since it's going to be in an open field and it's really not going to have much impact on citizens, but I do like being kept informed if there's issues. They're knowledgeable about the type of construction, so everything should go well. PEC did have some concerns about doing part-time inspection versus full-time inspection, more on the liability aspect of it. I've done a lot of inspection in my earlier career, and my personal opinion is it's a bit of a waste of time when you're just putting in pipe work with reputable contractors to have somebody sitting out on site just watching pipe go in. I mean, it's pretty standard. So they understood that I understood, and so they were more comfortable going with a part-time. But if there is an instance where something gets put in the ground that maybe not perfect or what we want, they wanted to make sure it was understood that it's not their liability because they were not on site. And from my perspective, that's a risk that I'm willing to take for the amount of cost that it saves. Those instances are very few and far between. They very rarely happen, especially on pipework projects. Paving projects are a little bit different. It's a little bit higher stakes. It takes a lot longer if there's an issue, to rectify it. It's much more visible. The piping, we've got enough checks and balances with all of our testing that I'm very comfortable not having full-time inspection. If that is something this council wishes to do, you're going to about double your cost. And then, of course, that's going to be passed on to any future homeowners in the area.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Dean.
I do have a question, Ann, about that, about the part-time versus the full-time, and then also how they handle the fee, whether that's not to exceed amount, or I'm just curious if that fee that they presented was in line with some of the other subdivision inspections that we've done to date in the last couple of years. And then the second thought I had on accepting work without having full-time inspection is if it made sense to do any sort of, I don't know if our spec requires this, any sort of post-construction television, TVing of the sewer line. I would be more worried about the sewer line installation than the water, because the water will test out and
Sure.
you'll have proof that it's holding and it'll get its bacteria test and all that stuff. But do we have a requirement to do a post-install TVing?
Yes, the sanitary sewer line gets televised. It also gets air tested.
Okay.
So if it does not hold
We'll know.
air, we'll know there's an issue, and then it's the contractor's responsibility to figure out where that's at. The manholes get tested as well to make sure that they're holding and fairly watertight. The water is tested. It's not only pressure tested, but it's bacteriologically tested to make sure that it's clean and clear and holds pressure and is ready to go. So with those testings, we're fairly confident that what they put in is good. We also have a 2-year warranty on the project. As with any of our subdivision projects, that if there's something that is noticed in that 2-year period, then the contractor is beholden to come and fix it. So that's part of the comfort level. To your initial question, I did not do a specific comparison with fees, but it did not strike me as being out of line.
Thank you. That helps.
It's a not to exceed.
Correct.
After what you've described, I'm kind of curious, why don't we do this more like a home build inspection where we come inspect at certain steps along the way instead of having to sit there and watch them all the time?
It was my training that it's better to do surprise inspections and just to show up. That way you're going to be kind of catching what they're doing. If they're doing anything out of the ordinary, you're more likely to catch it at that time instead of giving them the opportunity to go through and maybe not do pieces correctly and then cover it up. So that was my training as a young engineer doing inspections. And then it just gives the opportunity for questions too.
I guess I could kind of see the drainage. You'd have to make sure you had the right levels. But since you're doing pressure tests and TV tests, I'm not sure what they're going to get by with.
There's when they have bends or junctions in the pipe, we have thrust blocking, big concrete blocks that sit in there, or they're called mega lugs. They're just joints that are screwed and bolted together to make sure that the pipe doesn't fall apart under pressure. It's good to have a set of eyes on it periodically. Also to have somebody that's touching base with the contractor. Do you have questions, to make sure that any issues are taken care of as quickly as possible before they arise to an issue of stopping work.
Okay. They're putting in a lot of pipe, I know. Yeah, and I kind of like the idea of surprise inspections. But I still think there could be less inspecting going on than the 90% or 50% of the time that they're working on it.
And my instructions were to go out and spend an hour or so on site. So it's not spending a half a day or 3/4 of a day. It's spend enough time that you know what's going on without just sitting there for hours on end watching pipe sticks go in the ground.
Yeah, I personally would like to have eyes on if I was doing this before they buried anything.
Exactly.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Hamburg.
I just had one quick clarification. The developer and the eventual homeowners that'll be special assessed, they're not overpaying because we're contracting it out, because you would charge for your time if you had the time. Am I understanding that correctly?
I've been here for a little over 9 years, and I have never done inspections on our projects, so I have never charged for that. When I do have the time, I do like to stop out just to say hi, see how things are going, just for my own education and to just keep track of all of our projects. But I've never performed the inspection because I just don't have the reliable time to get out there on a frequent basis.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. David.
make a motion to accept work order number 2412 with Professional Engineering Consultants for part-time construction inspection services for the Bel Aire Lake Subdivision Phase 1 water and sanitary sewer construction for an amount not to exceed $43,400, and authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
A motion by Mr. David, a second by Mr. Dean. Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. Item G, Bel Aire Municipal Court plans to run a food drive from November 20th, 2024 through December 31, 2024, with all non-perishable items donated to the Kansas Food Bank. For each can or box of food donated, the court will reduce fines or warrant fees by $5 up to a maximum of $50 per case, regardless of the number of items donated. Similar programs have been held in other cities such as Andover Valley Center. A report from the court clerk is included in your packet, and Barry Smith is here, our finance director, to answer any questions. Mr. Smith.
Excuse me. Good evening, Mayor and Council. So tonight before you is our Food for Fines program. When we were doing our annual evaluation for our municipal court clerk, Lindsay Nygaard, some of the goals we went over was establishing some kind of new program for the municipal court. And one thing she wanted to do was incorporate a Food for Fines program. So Mayor did a great job of explaining exactly what it does. It allows our clients of the court an opportunity to donate non-perishable food items to receive up to a $50 credit on their fines and fees. It's going to run from November 20th through December 31st, and then everything collected will be taken to the Kansas Food Bank.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Hamburg, do you have some comments?
Well, I was going to, I'm reading A Christmas Carol with my daughter, and so I hope Dickens isn't spinning in his grave. I'm too much of a Scrooge here. I guess what struck me, I love the idea. I mean, it's a lovely idea. But it's not something we offer year round. And so like, you know, if you had a fine back in the spring, it would be nice if you could get a $50 discount then as well, not just during the Christmas season. That was just my only concern with it, is kind of the fairness of it. I'd almost be more in support of it if it was like a year round thing. And I've kind of always stuck by like charity is a lovely idea, but I don't know if we want it to muddle with our, you know, justice system. Those were my initial thoughts. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
I've got a couple of thoughts on this. First, I believe part of it was mentioned that this was for people that couldn't afford their fines. And does the court not have the ability to lower those in that case? Yeah, I'm looking at you, city attorney. Thank you.
It really depends upon the offense. There are some offenses where the court does not have authority to lower the fine. For example, even a diversion agreement, that's all set through a contract, and that cannot be lowered by the court. DUIs, any type of reinstatement fee, those are specific fees that the court has no authority to lower. But it really depends upon the charge.
So are those all fees, fines that would be paid to the city, or are they paid to someplace else? Because you said through contract.
Reinstatement fees, those would go to the Kansas Department of Revenue. Our court clerk would take them, but then distribute them to the Kansas Department of Revenue. For diversion fees, there are costs that are involved in itemized. I'm not familiar with those right now.
So, okay, so the gist is we really could be costing the city money by doing this.
I don't have any of the data for how many of those cases there are.
So
I haven't looked at them.
I think that's why it's proposed that we only apply these to the fines and fees that we really have control over, like a speeding ticket, things like that. Anything that is state mandated, like the KLETC fund, the police training fund,
Okay,
the
so
judges fund, we still
back
collect
to
that as part of
question
court
one.
costs.
It's ones we have control over, so we could lower them if the
That'd be up to
defendant couldn't pay.
That'd be up to the judge to do that, yeah.
So that's not a value here for this project. And then the next thing that bothers me about this is if we're not going to lower those fees, then essentially we're asking the city residents to pay those fees for somebody.
I don't know if it's really the city residents paying the fees for those, since that individual incurred those by committing the infraction.
If he's getting $50 credit, somebody's paying it, and that's only can come out of the city's pocket at that point. It may not be a huge amount, but it is asking our residents to pay that.
I don't know if that's quite the same when it comes to committing the infraction and getting charged the fine for like a speeding fine. That's not something that we already owed as a city, that we're assigning a fee to someone to pay for. This is a fee that was incurred by that individual, and it's solely their responsibility to pay that. We would just be crediting the amount that they would owe to us through the Food for Fines program.
Okay, but if we're not going to, if the court is not going to lower that fine because they can't pay, then the city is paying that fine. Yeah, I can see your quizzical look and I understand you're having problems with this, but if we're not lowering the fine, then somebody is paying it. It's either the defendant or the city.
Yeah, the defendant would ultimately pay it. Yeah.
But if we're
But the
giving them
city would not.
$5 credit for a 50-cent can of beans, then the city's paying $4.50 on his fine.
I don't know if we're actually paying money out of our pocket to that fine. We're just reducing what's owed to us.
Reducing the revenue.
And so
Yeah.
then I go back to, if we're going to reduce their fines, just let the court reduce their fines.
Yeah, I mean, and I understand your point completely. That'd be completely up to the judge to do that. Sometimes it takes individuals a year and a half, 2 years to pay off their fines, depending on how many infractions that they have. This just gives an opportunity for the court to have our defendants help provide some kind of additional assistance that we can then pass on to, local food bank, things like that for the people that are in need.
Okay. And the third point is, I guess, we have argued before about what things should be paid for with city money. And essentially what we're saying is the city's going to donate money to the food bank.
If that's your take on it, I mean, that's fine. I don't think the city's.
That's what it
I mean,
boils
we're not
down
cutting
to.
a check to the food bank. I mean,
No, but we're taking the food in lieu of something else. So we're
we're just offering to provide a
I
credit to
can
their
see
account
you're
for.
totally confused, and I don't know how to explain it better, but
Barry, can I clarify something?
Sure.
So the $50 fine isn't to cover our costs. That is a revenue. That would just strictly be $50 of revenue that we're not taking in.
Correct.
But we're not losing costs. Like the costs of the court are covered.
Correct.
Through whatever other means. The
Yeah.
fines are in just a fine for the violation.
Yeah.
That's just a revenue source.
Right. Yeah, we're not planning on that revenue at all. It just comes in as those infractions occur. So
You're not budgeting it. It's
Yeah.
not a budget item. It's
So, Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Smith.
so does the judge support this? Or where'd this come from? From the judge, or is this from
So-
somebody else in the office, or?
It was the goal of our municipal court clerk to start some kind of a new program. So I did reach out to her and ask her to get the judge and prosecutor and public defendants or public attorneys buy in on it as well. And they all agree it's a great program. I did it previously at my previous employer. I mean, we donated over 1,000 pounds of food to the food bank just from this program alone. So that's just something that Lindsay wanted to have an impact here in Bel Aire with as well.
that's a lot of fines. And by the way, we do budget a certain amount, an assumed amount for fines to come in.
Yeah, there is a small budget for it. So.
Yeah, it's a trend budget, yeah, on that one.
So I'll just tell you my take on this. I'm not a big fan of it. This crosses the line of government responsibility versus the church responsibility to help the poor. Anyone can and should give to the food bank through their churches. And this is almost feels like forced compassion, which is no compassion at all. Rather, it's a financial transaction. I can buy a can of green beans on sale for $1 and get $5 off my fine. Additionally, while it's a small and big picture of things, it does have a financial impact on the city in the form of reduced collection of fines. So I'm not a fan of it, but that's my 2 cents worth. So, okay.
If I was going to do something, I would just across the board forgive $25 worth of fines at Christmas and call it a Christmas bonus to everybody that's been in our court. I would much rather do that than this jockeying around with cans, and somebody's got to take all the cans down to the food bank, and somebody's got to pile them in a corner, and there's just lots of stuff going on here. And 1,000 pounds of food is going to be a pretty big pile.
Yeah, I mean, it just depends on what it is. There's a lot of baked beans that were donated
If it's
last
ramen,
time,
it's
so it
going
adds
to
up
be an
pretty
even
quickly.
bigger
But
pile.
yeah, that's just the point of it, to collect it all and take it all down there and donate it.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Hamburg.
I was afraid I was going to be the only one expressing concerns, but I don't think I am. So I'm going to make a motion to deny the 2024 Food for Fines program.
I'll second.
Motion by Ms. Hamburg, a second by Mr. David. Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye to deny
Aye.
this motion.
Aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? Motion carries
Nay.
5.
I'll have one nay.
Oh, one.
Took
Okay.
him a minute to
All right.
think.
I'd give him a minute. All right. Sorry. So that motion carries 4-1 with Mr. Smith. No.
Thank you very much. I'll pass along the info.
Thank you. Uh, No reason for an executive session this evening. All right, so I think go on to the discussion of future issues. The staff would like to give a brief presentation updating the council on the ERP upgrade. And Mr. Henry said he was going to reserve all of his time from earlier to now. So apparently he's going to speak for 15 or 20 minutes. So I don't know
Buckle in,
what he's
everybody.
thinking.
All right. Before I
You're
start,
up.
Nick Bishop's here tonight. He's our new communication, public relations, marketing person. So if you see him around, say hi, interact with him. He's going to do a great job for us. Yeah, a little surprise one. That's good. First, before I start the ERP update, I just remind you we updated everybody. It's been a few months, but we kind of try to track our time internally. And I think the last time we said we did about 60% of our job is dedicated to the ERP system update. So if you do the math, that's about 24 hours in a 40-hour work day or work week. And that this is a new project, so it's not necessarily something that takes place of something they're already doing. So I just really want to shout out Barry, Deb, and Princess. They're putting in about 60 hours a week here this whole year. So I really appreciate all their efforts. First, we set up the financial module. This involved about 4,000 lines. We had to set up a whole new chart of accounts, move data over from our previous provider to our new provider, train staffs and employees. I think I mentioned a little bit downstairs, but yes, we are going from a system that takes 20 clicks to do one process to a new system that only takes maybe 5 clicks, but you need to know what 5 clicks to click. So there's a lot of training involved in moving systems and understanding exactly what we're doing. Next step was payroll. We set up all our payroll system. Everyone's getting paid. That involved hand entering about thousands of lines of data. A lot of it moved over electronically, but year-to-date stuff didn't. So that took a lot of time. Training, of course, with staff. Those 2 modules were pretty easy because they were mostly internal. You're paying an invoice. You can take your time with something. You can take your time to learn. What we're doing right now with utility billing being set up is that's outward facing as well. So you're going to get a call from a resident. You better know how to navigate that system so that you can answer those questions. With utility billing, you have lots of cleaning up to do. So you take one old system, any data that you import into a new system, bad data in, bad data out. So what we did for a long time was clean up our old system the best we could. Then you work with your provider to transfer all that data. And a lot of times, sometimes transfers fail. So then you have to go back and do some more work. So that's really what we've been doing the last 2 or 3 months to get the utility billing system up and running. The other element of utility billing is the radio reads we have. About 15 years ago, probably the city invested in radio meters. That comes with the software. The old system had a different software to connect the radio reads to the software program. So we had to go to Census as our provider and upgrade the software for this new system. So that's what we've been doing for the last couple of months. As you can tell, there's a lot of different steps we're taking to get to where we are tonight. Again, Tyler is a wonderful company to work with. We're doing a great job, but they have also 5 different departments for each one of what I've just talked about. So you're dealing with 5 different departments. So it's been a great effort. And what Barry and Deb and Princess and Brian's here, I told him I would take the reins a little bit, but he can talk if he needs to. So what we're doing in November is you'll have a new utility bill, and we sent, if you got this in your packet, this is the update we sent to each resident. That'll be in the November utility insert along with your new utility bill. It just looks pretty similar to our old bill, but a lot of work has been done to get to this point. So we're go live with this big, with the new utility bill and the new system here in late November. And the reason why I'm saying that tonight, not last week, is any hiccup could have paused that situation. And when you're dealing with so many different departments within Tyler and us, if we had to pause, we might not be able to get back on schedule till March or April. So that's why we were being very cautious last workshop to make sure we're at the spot we are now. So we'll get the new bill, new account number. All ACHs will draft as they usually would. No problem there. The only thing that we are doing is we're rolling out the payment portal in December, and this gives us more time to educate citizens on how that works. It also gives us more time to get comfortable. We felt too much at once is a lot, so we're rolling out the new bill, and you can still make your same payment as you've been doing it with our normal payment solution system. But in December, we'll have we plan to have the payment portal through Tyler set up and ready to go. With that, as you know, we operate about an $8.3 million business in water sewer. And so back in 2020, we absorbed a lot of the credit card fees. With going to the new system, we're going to pass those on to the credit card user. It's going to be about 2.5%. So doing the math, there's about $150 might be our average transaction. So that's about $3.75 if you want to use your credit card. The 2.5%, if you think about it, there's a lot of 2% cashback cards out there. If someone pays for it, and it's usually the businesses, and that's a huge deal in all America. But state statute allows cities and governmental entities to have a convenience fee like we are going to do. What we are going to do is really push for ACH. That's free for any resident. So all their, and that's the way we strongly suggest. It's the easiest way to do, and you'll be able to sign up as you always will. Also, check and cash is free as well. So those are kind of the small elements that I'm discussing tonight. There's a little bit other things. So court payments will be a little higher rate because of just the way the system works. It'll be 3.75 or 95. I'm not sure, but that's just embedded into Tyler Tech. And that's what we decided to do. So the UB payments are, and about everything else is 2.5, but the court's a little higher, but that's a nuance we can discuss when we're setting up the court system. Right now, at the same time as we're doing this, court is getting upgraded right now. Barry and Lindsay's been working hard on that, as well as community development. So our permits, licenses, fees, and all that is also getting started right now. So as you can tell, there's a busy workplace here. And so UB payment portal, and then court, and then community development, or rec, and then community development. So it'll touch every piece of our city, and we're on schedule based on what we presented last update.
Is the historical going to be accurate as well the first time out?
Barry, do you know?
The prior months?
Sorry.
About the prior year.
Yeah, I mean, it shows, well, I have 5 months on this guy.
We'll try to import some of that usage, but I think with that trend chart, that annual chart, it has to build over time for that, because everything.
Oh, so it's not going to start with your prior. It'll just with the new system only.
There may be one or two of the prior, but everything got a new account number, every utility account. So it's got to basically start over just on this trend. We can still see the prior usage in the system, but on this chart itself on the bill, it's going to kind of start building over time.
We'll all start out as new customers at the same time.
Essentially.
So along those lines, a question on the ACH transactions: will people that are set up with ACH currently, will they have to do anything to make sure their bills get paid?
Yeah,
counted to the right account?
Yes, everything that's set up currently, if you're on ACH, it just transfers straight over, and it'll still be the same draft date, the 5th of every month.
And will it show the same description so they don't see something new on their statements or bills?
No, we don't know.
That I'll check on.
You'll be surprised.
I can see a bunch of people in Fairland.
They say Bel Aire.
Yeah.
So, and that's the other kind of, I can only throw too much at the two clerks I have, and that we're going to hear a lot of questions just with changing the bill. And so to give them that month, I just can't do that to my small staff, because once we roll the new bill out, we're going to get a lot of questions, and then we'll have to answer those. And then once we roll out the new payment portal, we'll get a lot of questions. So it kind of smooths the ride a little bit for staffing wise. And tell you the truth, they're training as much as they can, but they're new at the system too. So we're really trying to avoid the, let me call you back on that. You might have to bear with us a little bit, but we're going to work as hard as we can to answer every question as confidently as we can.
Can you process a couple of bills early?
Yeah,
Just for-
and Barry might know a little more about the training. Deb and Princess aren't here. They're mainly the UB side, but Barry's been his hands in a little bit of everything. So.
So Tyler also set us up with a complete test environment. So we've been running scenarios nonstop past couple weeks with our consultants, trying to do any kind of option or process there is to do. Move in, move outs, bill calculations, late penalties, late fees, new meter installs, everything. We're running through that test environment. Our clerks also went down to the city of Derby for 2 half-day periods over the past couple of weeks because they use the same software, and sat with their clerk that's been there about 13 years. And they got some great insights from that as well, on like the little nuances of things when it comes to processing bills and all of that. So doing everything we can to be ready to go 100% on day one.
And it's good they're getting some hands-on experience before they come into this system.
Yeah, tell it, break it. You got to try and break
until
it.
they
before
break
we
it.
go live. That's all I ask.
Right. Well, that's exciting that we're moving forward with that. I appreciate that. I know that's a big task, and we'll look forward to seeing how this rolls in. Hopefully you'll have very few hiccups. So. Okay.
Us too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's all you're going to talk about, huh?
Good.
Okay.
Take it easy on us.
Next
You can see
item
us
on
all
the
counting down.
next item on the agenda is adjournment. Unless somebody has something else they want to talk about. So,
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Dean.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Dean, a second by Mr. David. All in favor, say aye.
Wait a minute.
What?
I want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving before we go.
I did that already, but oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries 5-0. We are adjourned, and have a happy Thanksgiving, and we will see everybody in December.